This is how Trump's bodyguards protect the most powerful man in America. But Putin's bodyguards, they're operating on a completely different level with techniques so extreme they make the Secret Service look like mall security. One uses cutting-edge technology and constitutional protocols. The other employs methods that would make a Bond villain jealous, from armored convoys that cost more than most people's houses to security budgets that could fund entire military operations. I'm about to show you how two of the world's most protected leaders stay alive. Get ready as we compare the tactics, training, and sheer firepower of the men sworn to take a bullet for the President of the United States and the President of Russia. Trump's bodyguards. When it comes to protecting Donald Trump, the United States Secret Service doesn't mess around. These aren't just guys in suits with earpieces. They're elite operators trained for the worst case scenarios you can imagine. Trump's protection starts with his personal bodyguard team. And let me tell you, these guys have rums that read like action movie scripts. We're talking former Secret Service agents, ex-military special forces, and martial arts experts who've spent years mastering everything from Krav Maga to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But here's what makes them different from your typical security detail. They're not just reactive. These guys are constantly thinking 3 steps ahead. Every time Trump walks into a room, they've already mapped out 17 different ways to get him out if things go sideways. Take Trump's lead bodyguard, for instance. This guy's a former Secret Service agent himself, which means he knows exactly how the system works and where the gaps might be. He's trained in advanced threat neutralization and his martial arts background means he can disarm an attacker without even drawing his weapon. That's crucial when you're dealing with crowded events where pulling a gun could put innocent people at risk. But the real genius of Trump's security isn't just the muscle. It's the planning. Days before Trump even arrives somewhere, advanced teams are already on the ground. They're checking every entrance, every exit, every possible sniper position. They're coordinating with local law enforcement, running background checks on event staff, and basically turning wherever Trump's going into a temporary fortress. And let's talk about the tech for a second. Trump's security team uses some seriously advanced equipment. We're talking encrypted communications that can't be intercepted, surveillance systems that can spot a threat from blocks away, and vehicles that are basically tanks disguised as luxury cars. Speaking of vehicles, Trump's motorcade is a sight to behold. The Beast, that's what they call his armored limousine, weighs about 20,000 pounds and has armor plating that can stop a rocket-propelled grenade. The doors are 8 in thick. The windows can stop a 50 caliber bullet, and the whole thing is hermetically sealed with its own oxygen supply in case of a chemical attack. But the Beast doesn't travel alone. Trump's motorcade can include up to 50 vehicles, each with a specific purpose. You've got decoy limos, at least 2 identical vehicles so attackers don't know which one Trump's actually in. You've got the halfback and cat car, SUVs with their rear windows open so agents can return fire if needed. There's a mobile command center, medical units, and even a vehicle specifically designed to jam any remote explosives that might be on the route. The coordination required for all this is mind-blowing. Every route is planned and replanned. They have primary routes, backup routes, and emergency routes. Local police shut down intersections. Snipers take positions on rooftops, and the whole operation moves like a well-oiled machine. Out. Trump's security has faced some serious tests. Remember the assassination attempt during the 2024 campaign in Butler, Pennsylvania on July 13, 2024. A 20-year-old gunman named Thomas Matthew Crooks managed to get onto a rooftop just 450 feet away from where Trump was speaking at a rally. The guy had an AR-15 style rifle and a clear line of sight to the former president. Here's what went wrong. The building where Crooks positioned himself was supposed to be secured by local law enforcement, but there was confusion about who was responsible for what. The Secret Service Thought local police had it covered. Local police thought it was outside their assigned perimeter. Meanwhile, rally-goers were literally pointing at the guy on the roof, yelling that there was a man with a gun. Crooks managed to fire 8 shots before a Secret Service counter-sniper took him out. One bullet grazed Trump's ear, missing his brain by literally millimeters. A spectator, 50-year-old Corey Comparator, was killed while shielding his family, and 2 others were critically injured. The whole thing was a catastrophic security failure. You had people in the crowd spotting the threat before the professionals did. You had a gunman with explosives in his car and bomb, making materials at home. And you had a communication breakdown that nearly cost a former president his life. Now, I've got to wonder, are those same Secret Service agents still working Trump's detail after that mess? Because if I were Trump, I'd be asking some serious questions about who's watching my back. Did anyone get fired? Did heads roll? Or did they just shuffle some people around and call it a day? I mean, when your security team lets a 20-year-old with a ladder get within rifle range of you, that's not exactly a glowing performance review. That incident led to some major changes in how Trump's security operates. Now, there's even more emphasis on overhead surveillance, better communication between federal and local agencies, and more aggressive perimeter control. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheetel resigned in disgrace, and there were congressional hearings about the massive security lapses. But even with those improvements, Trump's security operates within certain constraints. They have to follow constitutional protocols, work with local law enforcement, and maintain some level of public accessibility. After all, Trump is an elected official. In a democracy, Putin's bodyguards, on the other hand, operate under completely different rules. Vladimir Putin's security detail makes Trump's Secret Service look like a neighborhood watch program. We're talking about a protection apparatus that's part elite military unit, part intelligence operation, and part personal army. Putin's protection starts with the Federal Protective Service, the FSO, and the Presidential Security Service, or SBP. These aren't just bodyguards. They're handpicked from the absolute best graduates of military mice and special forces units. We're talking about guys who've served in the GRU, Russia's military intelligence, the FSB, and the SVR, Russia's external intelligence agency. The selection process alone is insane. These agents are chosen not just for their physical abilities, but for their psychological profiles. They have to be able to handle extreme pressure, endure brutal weather conditions, and most importantly, show absolute loyalty to Putin personally. And here's something that would never fly in America. Putin's bodyguards are typically replaced once they hit 35 years old. The thinking is that they need to be in peak physical condition at all times. But here's the kicker. The ones who serve with distinction don't just get a gold watch and a pension. They get appointed as regional governors, federal ministers, or commanders in the security services. Talk about incentive to do your job. Well, Putin's personal protection operates in 4 distinct circles, and each one is more intense than the last. The first circle is his immediate bodyguards, the guys who are literally within arm's reach of Putin at all times. These are the elite of the elite, and they're equipped with some seriously advanced gear. They carry Kevlar, Putin's bodyguards, umbrellas that can be used as shields, special suitcases that can stop bullets, and 9mm Gira pistols that can fire 40 rounds per minute and penetrate body armor. But here's what's really wild. These guys are trained to sacrifice their lives without hesitation. That's not just rhetoric. It's literally part of their job description. They've undergone psychological conditioning that makes them view Putin's life as more valuable than their own. The second circle consists of plainclothes agents who blend into crowds. These guys are everywhere Putin goes, dressed like regular people, but constantly scanning for threats. If they spot something suspicious, they don't wait for backup. They isolate and detain the threat immediately. The third circle handles perimeter security. These agents are positioned just outside crowds at public Events making sure no one's suspicious. Gets close to Putin. They're the first line of defense, and they're authorized to use whatever force necessary to neutralize threats. But the fourth circle is where things get really intense. Snipers positioned on rooftops, with orders to take out anyone who poses a perceived threat. These aren't just security guards. They're trained killers, with military-grade weapons and the authority to use them. And that's just when Putin's out in public. His transportation security makes Trump's motorcade look like a family road trip. Putin travels in an armored convoy that includes multiple decoy vehicles, heavily armed military personnel with AK-47s, anti-tank grenade launchers, and portable anti-aircraft missiles. His personal limousine, the Russ, is basically a tank with leather seats. It has VR-10 rated armor, oxygen tanks for gas attacks, and electromagnetic pulse shielding so hackers can't disable it. But here's where Putin's security gets really paranoid. They use food tasters. Every meal Putin eats is tested by someone else first to make sure it's not poisoned. They also employ body doubles for certain public appearances, though Putin's team denies this. The advanced work for Putin's trips is equally intense. His security teams survey locations months ahead of time, checking not just for criminal activity, but even for the possibility of natural disasters. They place electronic jammers around event locations to prevent remote detonations and conduct electronic security budget surveillance of every cell phone in the area. Putin's security budget is classified, but estimates suggest it's well over $1 billion annually. That's more than the GDP of some small countries, and it shows in the level of protection he receives. But here's what really sets Putin's security apart from Trump's. They don't have to worry about constitutional constraints or public accountability. If Putin's bodyguards think someone's a threat, they can act first and ask questions later. They don't need warrants. They don't need probable cause, and they certainly don't need to worry about civil rights lawsuits. This difference in operating philosophy creates some stark contrasts in how the two leaders are protected. Trump's Secret Service has to balance security with accessibility. They can't just shut down entire city blocks. Whenever Trump wants to grab a burger, they have to work with local law enforcement, follow legal protocols, and maintain some level of transparency about their operations. Putin's security, on the other hand, operates more like a military occupation. When Putin visits a city, entire districts can be locked down. Traffic is diverted. Businesses are closed, and anyone who looks suspicious can be detained without explanation. The technology differences are equally striking. Trump's security uses advanced but commercially available technology, encrypted radios, surveillance cameras, and armored vehicles that, while impressive, are still bound by certain legal and budgetary constraints. Putin's security has access to military-grade equipment that most countries' armies would envy. We're talking about signal jammers that can disable every electronic device in a several-block radius, surveillance systems that can track individual faces in crowds of thousands, and weapons systems that are classified at the highest levels of the Russian military. The training differences are just as significant. Trump's Secret Service agents are highly trained professionals, but they're still operating within a civilian law enforcement framework. They're trained to use minimum necessary force to de-escalate situations when possible and to work within the American legal system. Putin's bodyguards are trained more like special forces soldiers. They're taught to eliminate threats quickly and efficiently with less concern for collateral damage or legal niceties. Their primary objective isn't to arrest threats, it's to neutralize them. This difference in approach has led to some interesting incidents over the years. Trump's Secret Service has had to deal with protesters, hecklers, and even the occasional person who jumps the White House fence. Their response is typically measured and professional. They detain the person, investigate the threat level, and turn them over to the appropriate authorities. Putin's security has dealt with threats very differently. There have been reports of journalists who asked uncomfortable questions being detained for hours, opposition activists disappearing after getting too close to Putin's events, and protesters being arrested before they even had a chance to protest. The cost differences are staggering, too. The Secret Service's annual budget is around $3 billion, but that covers protection for the president, vice president, their families, and visiting foreign dignitaries. Trump's personal protection probably accounts for about $400 to $500 million of that annually. Putin's security budget is estimated at over $1 billion just for his personal protection. That doesn't include the broader FSO budget or the costs of protecting other Russian officials. We're talking about a security apparatus that employs over 50,000 people and has access to resources that most small countries can only dream of. But perhaps the most significant difference is in accountability. Trump's Secret Service operates under congressional oversight, media scrutiny, and public accountability. When they screw up like they did in Butler, Pennsylvania, there are investigations, hearings, and heads roll. Putin's security operates in complete secrecy. There's no congressional oversight, no media scrutiny, and certainly no public accountability. If they make mistakes, we never hear about them. If they use excessive force, there's no one to complain to. This lack of accountability has allowed Putin's security to develop some truly extreme measures. There are reports of them using everything from poison to radioactive materials to eliminate threats. Whether these reports are true or not, the fact that they're credible says something about the reputation Putin's security has developed. The psychological impact of these different approaches is worth considering, too. Trump's Secret Service, for all their professionalism and training, still have to operate within certain moral and legal boundaries. They're protecting the president, but they're also upholding American values of due process and civil liberties. Putin's bodyguards operate under no such constraints. Their job is to keep Putin alive and in power. Period. If that means intimidating journalists, disappearing dissident, or using methods that would be considered war crimes in other contexts, so be it. This difference in philosophy extends to how threats are assessed and handled. Trump's Secret Service evaluates threats based on credible intelligence, specific actions, and legal standards of evidence. They can't just decide someone's a threat because they don't like Trump. They need actual evidence. Putin's security can designate anyone a threat based on much looser criteria. Criticizing Putin publicly, asking uncomfortable questions, or even being in the wrong place at the wrong time can be enough to get you on their radar. The international implications of these different approaches are significant. 2. When Trump travels abroad, his Secret Service has to coordinate with local law enforcement and respect the sovereignty of other nations. They can't just take over a foreign city and impose their will. Putin's security, when he travels, often acts more like an occupying force. They bring their own equipment, their own personnel, and they operate according to their own rules, regardless of local laws or customs. But here's what's really interesting. Despite all these differences in approach, resources, and methods, both security details have had their failures. Trump's Secret Service has had several high-profile lapses, from the Butler shooting to various fence jumpers at the White House. These incidents led to investigations, reforms, and changes in leadership. Putin's security has also had some notable failures, though we hear about them less often. There have been several assassination plots against Putin that were thwarted, but there have also been incidents where his security was caught off guard or made serious mistakes. The difference is in how these failures are handled. Trump's security failures become front page news, congressional investigations, and opportunities for reform. Putin's security failures disappear into the black hole of Russian state secrecy. So, what does all this tell us about the two leaders and the countries they represent? Trump's security reflects American values: professional, accountable, and operating within constitutional constraints. It's not perfect, and when it fails, those failures are public and painful. It's also transparent, subject to oversight and constantly evolving to meet new threats. Putin's security reflects a different set of values. Absolute loyalty, unlimited resources, and no accountability to anyone except Putin himself. It's probably more effective at keeping Putin alive, but it comes at the cost of civil liberties, transparency, and basic human rights. The irony is that both approaches have their strengths and weaknesses. Trump's security is more ethical and accountable, but it's also more constrained and potentially more vulnerable. Putin's security is more ruthless and comprehensive, but it's also more prone to abuse and corruption. In the end, the difference between Trump's bodyguards and Putin's bodyguards isn't just about tactics or technology. It's about the fundamental nature of the societies they're protecting. One operates in a democracy where power is temporary and accountability is expected. The other operates in an authoritarian system where power is permanent and accountability is non-existent. Both men face real threats and both have security details that take those threats seriously, but the methods they use to address those threats say as much about their countries as they do about the men they're protecting. And that's a wrap. But what you just watched took over 15 hours to research, verify, and write. If you want more deep dives into the hidden world of power and protection, subscribing helps us keep bringing you these stories. For more fascinating insights into how the world's most powerful people live and operate, check out the videos on your screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the